Hello guys, hello my subscribers, my viewers, the general diaspora. Thank you very much for joining with me today. Today is another story time as usual, but today I'm gonna do things a bit differently, and I'm just gonna ask a question. I would like for you to share your views in the comment section down below. All right, so in today's question, what would you do if you have your best friend and your best friend, your boyfriend, and you went to a party? So all three of you went to a party, and you guys are drinking, gyrating, and so forth. And then all of a sudden, you see your best friend began gyrating on your boyfriend to the point where he actually pulled her up in his arms, and her legs were around his waist. You know that style that they do in the dance hall, and she was actually whining on him passionately in front of you. What would you do if you were in that situation? Please leave your comment down below. Alright, so thank you guys for subscribing. Thank you guys for sharing, telling a friend to tell a friend. Alright, so in today's story time, sometimes I don't know if you guys do it, but as an adult, I actually reminisce on the past a lot. So I think about things that happen or occur years ago that actually made me uncomfortable, that made me in tears, and so I choose to share some of these stories with you, the regular public, to see if you guys are actually going through it at the moment, or you actually went through it as a teenager or as a younger child. Alright, so you know, when you actually have family, some of the times they break your heart too, trust me. And as a little girl growing up, I can remember a lot of things, and numerous things that actually made me question certain decision of my aunts, uncles, cousins, relatives, and so forth. Um, I grew up with my brothers, my two brothers, my mommy and my daddy. There are times when, relationship wise, mommy and daddy would go at it, and mommy will left and go to her sisters, but daddy will always remain at home. Daddy didn't left. That's one thing I can guarantee. Daddy was always there. But mom would go uptown sometimes, and sometimes it kind of have a negative impact on the child's life, because as a child or as a young girl, you want to see both parents, you want to be raised by both parents, and so when one is away and one is at home, you get that feeling of you get that feeling that something is wrong, even though you didn't understand as a younger child at the time, but you always want both parents around. Alright, because my mom is the best chef in the world. I can tell anyone that without apology. So whenever my mom is not cooking, I dearly, dearly, dearly miss that food. Dearly miss it. Daddy tried his best, because I remember I didn't see my mom working until I was actually in my teenage years, and so daddy was always the one providing. Mom was always at home, but whenever they have their differences, she would always find rescue in her relatives and so forth. So um, I was usually the type to be back and forth, because I actually love my cousins. I grew with them as well, because while there, I used to, like, in the summer, sometimes on weekend, even during the week, I would just go to my grandma's house. At the time, my grandma aunts and one of my uncles was actually living under the same roofing, but they have their different section of the house. Yes. I actually loved going there at the time because I had cousins my age who I could relate to, who I spent most of my time with also. So I was uptown, downtown. I could remember at one point my aunt was actually staying with us. At the time I honestly didn't know what took place or what drives her to go downtown because they were always anti downtown. They don't like downtown. I can tell you that much. So to see her there, it was basically puzzling at the time. But as I said, I was a little girl. I didn't question certain decisions. I was even happy to see them there because I actually like when my family was around at the time. So they were there for a couple months. It was my aunt and her. She had three children at the time. So it was three children at the time. She had three children. Um, they were actually living with us there for a while, and then sometime after that, they went back up. But sorry, but I was always of the view that something was wrong, but I just couldn't tell you what it was. Anyways, um, while my aunt was there, my dad used to take care of a lot of things, a lot of stuff. My dad used to like give her kids lunch money to go to school, and they were getting even more money than me to school because at the time, say for instance, I was getting $100 for my lunch money. They were actually getting 300, $400. At that time, um, that money was more than enough for a school child to go to school. So they were actually getting triple the money that I was getting to go to school. And many of the times I see my aunt saying to my dad, Leonard, this to give the kids lunch money to go to school. And sometimes 2 3 days after, I could hear my dad telling my mom that, hey, your sister borrowed some money, and she didn't say anything back to me and so forth. And sometimes my aunt will say she will get it, you will get it fortnight because she get paid fortnightly, and that fortnight turns into 1 month, and so till most of the time my dad just say, hey, you will just forget about it. So I was there. I could remember me being there. So when it was a school day, um, I had to leave uptown and go all the way downtown to my dad to get to school because my school was actually in East Kingston. And so I have to leave uptown, travel all the way downtown, and then go to my dad, and then come back to get the bus to go to school. So whenever I was there uptown, it was really really hackling to me, and I had a lot of issues with it because I was saying I didn't know her pocket at the time, but growing up, you would know who your so-called auntie with the money or your uncle with the money was. Based on how the family talk about them, you would know that, hey, this aunt have money or this aunt doesn't have money and so forth. So in my mind at the time, that was my aunt with money, and so I knew money wasn't an issue at the time. And as I was saying, I was getting like 3 times less of what her kids was getting to go to school. And so majority of the time I was actually late for school because I really liked my cousins company, so I was always around them. However, what basically stood out for me was I had the youngest cousin. She was actually younger than me. She was the youngest um, child for my aunt at the time. So that child, she was the most caring to me. Trust me, because she was going to the school that she was going. She was the closest to home, and she would get the least out of the other. Out of the, all three, she would get the least to go to school. And I could remember on couple occasions, well, she would offer me money out of her lunch money for me to go to school. And I mean, she understood at the time. She was saying, hey, cause I know far your school is and you have to go down to your daddy, so I'm going to give you some lunch money out of mine because I actually save some from the day before and so forth. And she would sometimes supply me. So whenever she supplied me with funds, I would just go straight to school instead of going to my dad. And then sometime in the evening, I would just go to my dad, collect the lunch money, and then go back up. It depends on what my mom or my dad would say. If they say I could go, or they say I should come home and so forth. When it comes down to exam time, my mom always ensure that I'm actually home because she like to see me study. She would always say whenever I'm not there, or whenever I am with my cousins or my aunts, she didn't trust the process of me studying, so she would rather me around her to know that I am actually studying. Yes, so my aunt, no, what she did something that actually I'm not sure if I want to talk about it, but because I'm already in the story, I'm going to talk about it. My aunt actually did something, and it actually changed my feelings and my love for her at the time, and she didn't know that up until this video. So my mom and my dad was actually the poorest set out of all her sisters and brothers, because my grandmother have 14 kids. Eight of them died, and the ones that remain. So six remain, right? Um, Out of all six, my mom was the poorest, and I'm saying was back then, and I am saying is the poorest now. Alright. However, even though we were poor, my dad see to it that we were clothed, we were fed, and we had shelter over our head. My aunt came to stay with us, as I was saying, and when she came there, you know, my dad, he always have a lot of shoes. He like his sneakers and so forth. My aunt actually wear the same size as my dad. Um, and what happened was that my dad actually missed his shoes, but he didn't say anything to us. He was there looking for it, because we didn't have much space in the house, because it was actually one room, two bed. My mom and dad, and me and my little brother. My big brother had his own room. So we didn't have a lot of space, because the house was we had furniture, so it's not as if it was an empty house with just two beds. We had our table or fridge or dresser, chest, drawer, and so forth. So the space was actually limited. We didn't have that big space to walk. But my dad always has his shoes under the bed, and so one day my dad missed his shoes, and he was like, "Anybody see my shoes?" Because I can't recall seeing it for a couple of days now. Out of everybody else, I wear the smallest size up to now. So nobody at all in the house shoes cannot fit me. And so I think my dad wear a size 8 or 9. I'm not sure, I would have to ask him, but I believe it's somewhere around that. And he was asking, he was looking for his shoes and so forth. He didn't find the shoes because we actually asked everyone, but my dad didn't ask my aunt because he was saying that she's a female, and he didn't think anything. He didn't think she would take it or anything like that. So he was just of the view that it's either somewhere up under the bed or he misplaced it under either his bed or my bed or vice versa. So he asked my mom to actually look for it when she was doing that deep cleaning, changing around the house and so forth. My mom agreed. So he couldn't find the shoes. About a month after, he found it, and strangely the shoes appear like right under the bed, exactly where he would have left it. I remember where he had left it, and I was like, "Dad, you sure? Cause I wouldn't wear that shoes, cause something strange." I mean, we were actually looking for the shoes. My little brother was looking for it. Mommy was looking for it. He was looking for it, and I was like, "Dad, you sure? Cause shoes wasn't there when we looked." And he was like, "Jesus got me. Jesus covered me." So um, he didn't believe in supernatural things and so forth. So superstitious things. Sorry. Um, so I was like, "Daddy, you sure? Daddy, you sure?" And he was like, "Yes." So my mom washed the shoes, and actually he wore the shoes to his workplace. Anyways, one of my mom's sister came to visit him, and she was like, this is another sister, and she was like, "Oh, that's the shoes my sister loaned you, cause my sister had it on like." So basically, the timeline when we missed the shoes, she was like, "My sister wore that to work," and everybody was complimenting her, saying that the shoes look good. And she told us that she was going to give it to you because she didn't like it anymore. And my dad was puzzled. So when my dad came home and my dad told us about it, for one, I knew exactly what he was saying. I understand everything. And I was like to my cousin, "Why would your mom do something like that?" And she was like, "It's a lie. Your mom didn't say anything like that." And actually phone calls were made. It's not nowhere, you have these type of gadgets on this type of phone. It was just a regular phone call back then. And my dad asked her about it, and she was like her sister was lying and so forth. And it kind of caused a little tension there. From that day, I was like, I actually love my aunt, but what she did, I wasn't in agreement with it, because why would you say something like that? We all know that my parents are poor. They are poor. But the fact that you went to your workplace and to say something like that, um, it's really, really, really disheartening to know that you did something like that, and you know that it wasn't your shoes in the first place. So because she was that heighty type that is deemed to have money, seeing my dad in the shoes, no, it would mean that my dad is actually wearing a second hand. Good thing that my dad had friends who actually knew that he bought the shoes, and he actually wore the shoes before. Else, person would actually believe her. Um, Looking at it now, um, I just smile. But back then, it was everything in a person's reputation for me. And you cannot discredit people like that. So my dad felt really bad. My aunt, she felt like she actually betrayed us, and so she didn't stay there long, because after a while, you know, she started to give us the cold shoulder and so forth, as if my dad should have actually told her sister that yes, she gave him the shoes for real when nothing like that happened, you know. And so from that, I love my aunt. Trust me, I did love her. But from that day, I was like, that is not a good thing. She didn't do a good thing there, because she actually discredited my dad's reputation, you know. And so I felt really, really bad. I felt really, really bad at the time. You know, so that goes to show you that persons will destroy your reputation just because they have a little money over you. You know, so I'm glad that my dad stood his ground, and he didn't fell for it. He told the truth, and persons who actually knew him, knew the story, and knew that he purchased the shoes for himself, they actually believed him, and they knew that my aunt was actually lying. You know, so that's my story for today. Thank you very much for tuning in, for staying with me, and thank you very much for listening, for liking, and for sharing. Stay tuned for another story time coming up soon. Have yourself a wonderful night. Peace.